Hello, Barbara Jane, the Stamping Queen here. Today we are going to try some different coloring techniques. I'm not a big coloring person. I don't really know why, but I don't usually use most of these things to just make cards. But today we're going to try out these different items that we have. These are Stampin' Blends, soft pastels, and watercolor pencils. These are and the water painter. These are available on page 118 of the new catalog, and the Stampin' Blends are also available. I don't know which page. Let me look it up here for you, because that could be a good thing for you. Let's see. Well, they should be spread through all of these. So the color families that you can use, it has the Stampin' Blend, so you can buy each color. And this is on 137, page 137. This is 135, so you can find all the Stampin' Blends here. We're only going to use a few of them today, and one of these that we're going to use is yellow and brown. It doesn't make what color yellow and brown you're using, because it just really doesn't. So we're going to start out with the soft pastels. I have used some of these. I tried them out yesterday with some results I liked and some results I didn't. So I'm going to show you what I did. So they come packaged like this, and I tried it here. I don't like it because I just don't like it, but we're going to try a different color right now. We're going to try this one. So take it out, and I usually just use the corner. Everything here is stamped with Versamark and then clear embossing powder over it. And the difference in color is just because the clear embossing powder brings out the color of the cardstock. So everything is the same thing, is the same way. So we're going to try this here. And I'm just going to rub this in one area. I'm not going to go over, the lines of the embossing powder. I'm just going to stay in the lines as much as possible. And I'm not trying to make this fully colored in. I'm just trying to give it some accent. I'm going to take just a regular artist brush that I have, and then because these are pastels, which means it's chalk, and it comes up. So there's going to be some residue that's not going to stay there. And I'm just going to brush it a little bit. And then, so I don't really mind that. This is the same thing that I have run into before, and I don't really like it in this technique, because you'll notice, I'm going to show you this other one. I tried the pastels in here. This is also pastels. This I don't mind, and I'm going to tell you why. So on this Magnolia, I used this aqua color right here, and I just spread it all over, but you can see that this part of the embossing powder is shiny, but where the chalk goes over it, where the pastels go over it, it's not. And I don't especially like that. So that's one thing that we could do. And I don't know, this I think looks fine. It was a lot of work to get just that little bit of color. But it looks good, and the embossing powder is still shiny, so I'm happy with that. So let's try something else. This is also the pastels, and you can see again that when I rubbed over it, oftentimes with some things, if you rub over it, you can pick up that color that's on top of the embossing powder. And at this point, and with these, I'm just not seeing that. It's dull, and I don't like that. I do like the embossing because it's shiny. And so when we go over this, it's the outside edge is still shiny. The inside, where those little lines are, when I rubbed it up, it's not shiny anymore. So I'm not a big fan of that, but these are easy to use. You might find a different kind of an application that you would like these. So don't be afraid to try them. Pastels are really, really cool to use. They blend really well. But in this application, I didn't especially like it. So we're going to try this Magnolia. This is on Crumb Cake, Moody Magnolia. And we are going to try, I know it's not exactly the right colors, but we're going to use yellow and brown on this just to see what we come up with. These are the Stampin' blends, so they're alcohol. And we're just going to do a couple of these leaves, just enough to give you some idea of what we're doing and how you can do it. So I'm going to just take this and I'm going to just go over, I'm going to stay in the lines as much as possible because I like it better without it being too much not in the lines. I like things nice and crisp. So, but that doesn't mean that if you like it somehow different, by all means, you do it how you like it, because this is all individualized. We get to do what we like and how we like it, because that's just the way it works. That's okay. It's not showing up very much. I'm going to use a different color to go over. This is a little darker color, and I'm just going to go over a little bit here in the bottom. And I'm not really sold on that. Now, if this were on white cardstock, it might be different. Let's try the zinnia and see what happens with that with the color of the markers, and let's see what happens. So I'm just going to go over this, and I'm finding the same thing already. There's just not a lot of contrast because of the color of the cardstock, so I'm not really thrilled with that. It's okay, and I certainly wouldn't complain about this. I think it could be very, very nice. But let's go on to another. We're going to use watercolor pencils, and those could be very fun because they're watercolor pencils. And the way that you activate these is you stroke them on, and then you use a little bit of water to make them flow. So we're going to go, let's try this one. This is Pretty in Pink. It's one of the new in colors, and this is Calming Camelia. This is all, you can't hardly see it, but I'm going to see if we can maybe come up with something that would enhance this. And I'm going to leave part of it so that we can do something else with it as well. So I'm just going to start coloring in these spaces over it all. And I know it's really hard for you to see. It's even hard for me to see because the color didn't contrast very much. So I'm just going to pick out a few of these petals and see what we can come up with. I'm not all that thrilled about that. But the way that you make watercolor pencils work is once you have the watercolor pencil on there, then you take a water source, and this is just an aqua painter. And I know that the end is stained, but that's okay. It won't make any difference. And then you just touch over that to activate the watercolor pencil. And I'm not totally unhappy with that. I would like a drier pen than this because the extra water in here, so I'm just going to pick it up with my finger, the extra water. And that's okay, but I'm not really sold on that. So let's try something else. And I'm not sold on any of these except this next method that I'm going to show you because I really, really like this method. And I really like the way that it works out, but we might as well explore everything. So I'm going to take some white. It can be the basic white, it can be whisper white, whatever you have. And then I'm going to use my refill because I want to have a lot of this ink to use. So I'm just going to spread it out there. And, oh good, and that's nice and thick. So let's see what happens. I'm going to take this sample. It is Blueberry Bushel cardstock, and this is Blueberry Bunches for the stamp set. And again, I'm going to use the aqua painter. And I don't want a lot of water. I just want a little bit of water. So I'm just going to take this and spread it out a little bit, and that's going to give me a little water. I'm not going to squeeze this at all. I'm just going to take a little bit of water, and I only want to highlight these blueberries. So I'm just going to take the white, and let's try it out and see what we get. So I just want to highlight these a little bit. Ooh, that's way too much. So I'm going to pick some of that up. I'm going to pick it up with my finger to get it off. Well, that didn't work like I wanted it to. So we're going to just do it like that. But I still don't want this very wet. So I'm just going to pick up a little tiny bit of the white again. I don't want a big glob. That's too much before. So I'm just going to put this here and then wipe off my aqua painter so I can pick that up. Oh, this is not how it's worked before, but it's good for you to see these things so that we know what to do when we come into getting an effect that we didn't like. Now I'm going to let that dry because I sort of like that. And I'm going to be very careful now with my other ones, because if the light spot is here, then the light spot has to be here as well. And I'm just going to move this around, and then I'm going to pick it up. If I had been really prepared, I would have had a paper towel here, but I didn't think I was going to need it. There you have it. So I'm just going to let that dry. And if it's not really round, that's fine. It doesn't really hurt. It looks a lot more natural that way. And so I'm going to let that dry. I'm actually liking that. I might like it better on a different color cardstock, because this is pretty bold, and the blueberries don't show up very well. So I'm going to leave that. I think that would be fabulous. And then to maybe do some cutting around here so that you can have just a piece to put on your card. I think that would be lovely, as well as this. So now let's try. I really like this color. This is Pecan Pie. I really, really like this. And I really like it for the contrast then of the embossing powder, what it does to it. So we're going to start with this flower. And I need to not have very much, ink at all. And so we're just going to highlight this a little bit. And I'm going to start at the back end because I'm just going to paint it on there. This is just regular cardstock. This is not watercolor cardstock. And you can do this quite easily. The trick is not too much water and not too many times going over it, because it just doesn't work. It makes the surface of the cardstock, if it gets wet, then it starts to roll up, pill up on itself. So this would work really well with just a tiny little touch. We just want enough to highlight those spaces. And when it dries, you can do a lot of layers if you let it dry between, so that the paper, the cardstock is very dry between, and then it doesn't seem to have such an issue of pulling up the layers of the cardstock. So I'm not hating that. It's not as much color as I want. However, the really fun thing with all of this is once I get the bottom layer highlighted with the white, then I can come back with whatever color I want to go over that and lay that down in layers as well. And the reason that I can do that is because once the water dries into the cardstock, it seems to give it new life again to do another layer. You still have to be really careful so that you don't want to scrub over it like this a bunch of times, because then that will make all the layers of the cardstock wet. And then you can, I wonder if you can see here, you might be able to see here where it's starting to sink in. And I'm just going to show you what happens then. So if I do this, it's See, you can see it's rolling up already. That's what we don't want to do. But this cardstock will handle quite a bit of water on it for a very short period of time. So we're just going to touch this up. We're going to go back a few times. And we just want to have some layers of color here. And I will like this a lot, I think. It takes a while to get the layers of color laid down. And then what I will do, I will either come back with the watercolor pencils, because you have to be careful once you use the watercolor pencils, because the top layer of the cardstock has already been made wet. So you need to be very careful with that. Or I would come back with an alcohol marker and go over with a different color to give it some more highlights. And you realize that a sunflower is normally darker towards the center and lighter on the outside edges. So, and we can do that. We can make that absolutely beautiful. And this will be very, very soft, lovely colors. And I'm just going to leave that. That'll dry. It'll just sink in and dry. I'm not going to go over these anymore. I'm going to touch this up just a little because it's at the outside edge and I haven't done that very much. So it hasn't had much water on there. So you can see, so this has to dry really, really well before you would go over again with another color. And then I would do the same thing. I would take the ink pad with the re-inker and just put a drop in and use it very, very sparingly and not very much water. So let's do this. This is Blessings of Home stamp, and it's still the pumpkin pie. So we're just going to take a couple of these petals, and this is likely going to be, I'm probably going to use pink or red with this, or maybe just leave it white. This is I wouldn't do this to make like 20 cards with, but it really wouldn't take all that much time if you do all the stamping first, and if you're going to cut it out, and then you can do this and go right down the layer, right down the row of things that you're doing, because it doesn't take long to do this. And you do want everything to dry, especially because this is not watercolor cardstock. If you use watercolor cardstock, it has a little bit of a texture on the top. And so you absolutely could use watercolor paper, and it would work wonderfully. It would work way better than this, except then it might not stamp as well because it's got a texture on the top. So try it out and let me know what works. Leave me a comment and we'll go over that, and we could do this again. In fact, I probably will do this again because I really love the way that this turns out. And I really like the softness of the color. So the embossing powder brings up the color of the cardstock itself. And then this gives it just a little bit of definition. And I absolutely love that. This is still too wet to do, but you get the gist, and this would be fabulous. If you have comments, please leave comments. Let me know how it works for you. I would love to see that. And if you want a new catalog, as always, leave me a note, send me an email to Barbara Jean, the Stamping Queen. I would love to send you a catalog in the mail. And I would also love to be your demonstrator if you don't have one. Of course, I always want you to buy from me, but I'm not, we'll get past that. So let me know if you liked this video, like and subscribe, press the bell for notifications, and I'll leave you a bunch of other information. I'll leave you the cardstock, the colors, and the stamps that I used in the comments and in the description of this. And I'll leave you some other information if you would like to become a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. Now is a great time to do that. So until next time, it's Barbara Jean, the Stamping Queen.